for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the fall!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TB. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for watching the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro, yours truly. Once again, you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter, and I am live in Spain. And once again, this will be an abbreviated version of the Sick Podcast throughout the summer months. And yesterday, I think we encountered a technical difficulty or two. The internet was rather unstable in the hotel. Unfortunately, folks, there's not much more that I can do from my end. I tried everything, but, the hotel's Wi-Fi is not in my hands. And so thank you for watching the Sick Podcast yesterday, even though at times it may have jammed up a little bit. It seems like the signal is a lot better today, and I'm really happy about that. The Sick Podcast, of course, is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. It's also brought to you by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the hot summer days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 or 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light, and it's ultra refreshing. Also brought to you in part by Playground. You can experience Playground's world-renowned poker experience with free food and drinks at their cash game tables, a bad beat jackpot that's over $1.1 million in climbing, weekly promotions, daily tournaments, unmatched customer service. Why play anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. And a shout out to Betway. We brought you, of course, the NHL draft coverage 2024 live from Vegas, courtesy of Betway. They're a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com. Scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 years old and play responsibly. Craig Button was one of our regular collaborators throughout the entire season. As a matter of fact, he was on most Wednesdays. So today, Wednesday, I think it's appropriate I bring him back on. Of course, he's a hockey analyst with TSN. He's the director of scouting. Craig, how are you?
I am great, Tony. How is Spain treating you?
Spain is extremely beautiful. I told this to Pierre yesterday, but my son who plays soccer, who played last year in Portugal at the U19 level, is actually trying his hand at pro soccer. So he's in a professional tryout. So the camp lasts for about a month, and it started on Monday with his first practice on Monday night. And now they're 2-a-days. They're 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. is fitness, and 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. is soccer. And that'll go for the next couple of weeks here. And so once again, it's a 1-month camp, so I'm here to show some support.
Great. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah. He's anyway, I won't bore you with that, but it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun watching. It's a lot of work for him. The body's a little bit sore today after a couple of 2-a-days, but that's no one ever said it was going to be easy.
No, Dale Hunter has a great line, and I heard it when he played, and he said that he said it often since then. He said the hard way is the easy way. If you want to go the easy way, it always becomes the hard way. So it's going to be hard to achieve anything worthwhile. So kudos.
And speaking of which, Craig, it would be easy to avoid today's subject because it's a sensitive one. But our job isn't always easy, and some days are harder than others, and some things are hard to say. So I'm going to start by saying this. Scotty Bowman is a legend, and he's a friend of the show, and he's a friend of everyone's. Earlier today, the Edmonton Oilers announced that his son, Stan Bowman, is the new general manager and executive VP of hockey ops for the Edmonton Oilers. We all know the history. We all know what's happened. We all know that Stan Bowman was the GM and architect of several Chicago Blackhawks teams that won the Stanley Cup. We all know the scandal that ensued with Chris Beach being a huge victim in all of it. We all know that several members of the Blackhawks were suspended, and they were they had to spend some time away from hockey, and he was reinstated a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of weeks later, he's once again appointed as the new general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. Your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot there. There's a lot to take in there, Tony. And I think that, we understand that there's a lot of sensitivities to it, and as there should be. I mean, there's no question that there should be. I guess there's a couple of places, and let me start with the sensitivities. The sensitivities are warranted. I don't think there's any question that whether you agree with it or disagree with it, and to what magnitude you agree or disagree. Any lack of sensitivity to what unfolded in Chicago is unacceptable. And I think that is the biggest thing that I would start off with. Number two, I know that over the course of time that this lawsuit was brought in 2021 by Kyle Beach. And as we know, with sexual assault, sometimes it takes years for people, and in this case, Kyle, to be able to become to be comfortable, bringing these things to a public light, and he certainly did that. So, number two, Kyle Beach deserves our sensitivities with respect to what he went through. Number three, I think that. The Block and Jenner report, or the Jenner and Block report, that it was a very thorough investigation from my standpoint and from what other people have said. Goes through it very systematically in terms of the failures, and I guess the biggest failure was the Chicago Blackhawks' own lack of adherence to their sexual harassment policies, and that they had established, and certainly. When Gary Bettman fined them, and after the fact, when Stan Bowman resigned and Joe Quenneville in Florida resigned for their part in it, I think that is meaningful. But I would caution everybody to, before you make your final judgments, go and read the Jenner and Block report, the Block and Jenner report. I mix that up and go through it, because I think it's done quite well. Number four, when you think about Sheldon Kennedy, a sexual assault survivor, and who has done tremendous positive work in this area, big time work. And he wrote a letter advocating for Stan Bowman, and I think that sensitivities with respect to Stan being hired have to be taken into account. But also respect, with where Sheldon feels comfortable, confident in endorsing Stan Bowman. I think that is significant. So that's number four. Number five, Jeff Jackson is somebody that I think is thorough. I think that does not make decisions based on lack of information. In fact, I think he's fully thorough in terms of understanding, number one, what are we looking for in our organization? What does this person mean to us, and specifically what does Stan? And make no mistake about it, Jeff will understand fully the impact, from social media, the public perception, and everything that goes with it. Number six is that we now come to a point where we know mistakes were made. We know Stan Bowman's acknowledged those mistakes that he's made. And we have to reconcile in our own minds what we think is acceptable punishment, what we think is acceptable going forward, what we think is acceptable with respect to being given a second chance. I mean, you hear lots about old school, all the, the old boys club in the NHL and all these types of things. I'm not going to tell people how they should feel. I'm just saying you have to reconcile that with a lot of different things. And if we just want to exile people, okay, then that's fine. Then we can exile people and we can exile them forever. Or again, when I use the word reconcile, we can reconcile, our own feelings and understanding that what transpired was unacceptable. First and foremost to Kyle Beach. And we can never forget that. But then after that, what we need to reconcile is this: how do we feel about the second chances? What do we feel about the work that have been put in by lots of people, and then go from there? I don't think you're going to get agreement one way or the other. You're going to get disagreement on one side for the hire. You're going to get disagreement. Yeah. You're going to get agreement on that he should have been hired. The bottom line is, I think you get to a point where individuals have to be able to understand how do I feel about this and what would I do? Jeff Jackson is the one that made the decision, obviously with the support of Daryl Cates, the owner. And I think that, we know Stan is a good executive. I know Stan wishes that he did things differently. Hopefully other people can see the merits in what the Edmonton Oilers have done. And maybe they'll never accept that Stan Bowman got accepted. But I think that's where we land today. And I think that, unfortunately, Tony, I'll finish with this. Unfortunately, it's a stain. It's a stain on the Chicago Blackhawks. It's a stain on the individuals that were there. How big the stain is, people will live with that for the rest of their lives. And again, I go back to Kyle Beach. He's the one that has to live with the assault. And he is the first and foremost person that we have to keep in mind here. And I don't know if Kyle Beach has an opinion on this or will have an opinion on this, but I think we have to listen. As we've listened to Sheldon Kennedy, I think if Kyle Beach has something to say about it, we got to listen to him as well and listen intently to what he may have to say.
I may have called him Chris Beach earlier on in the show, and so I apologize for that if I did, who also played in the National Hockey League, right, by the way. But thank you for obviously specifying that, yes, indeed, it was Kyle Beach. If you take a look at the Edmonton Oilers Twitter account after they announced the news, obviously the hiring is not unanimous. They are, like you mentioned, the impact on social media. They're getting it, and they're getting it pretty hard from a lot of people in the hockey world who obviously are not willing to forgive and believe that the National Hockey League was pretty lenient with their punishment.
I do believe your word there, lenient, is a very appropriate word there. And we see I think that one of the biggest things that we need to learn is that believe the victim, and go through the investigation. And that's where the Chicago Blackhawks, they failed. They failed on their own policies, and they failed Kyle Beach. And understanding that 2010 is different than 2024, but we need to learn, and we need to understand that when somebody comes out and alleges that something is wrong, I'll give you the Ian Cole situation in Tampa Bay. He accused of assault, and the Tampa Bay Lightning immediately suspended him. And then they did the investigation, and that's believing the victim. And we can say, well, what are you going to do? Believe every victim? Well, there's a process that is undertaken with respect to investigations of a sexual assault nature, and they went through it, and they found out there was nothing to corroborate it, and Ian Cole was reinstated and reinstated fully. And Ian Cole said this. He said, when we have a situation where there is an allegation, well, then we listen to the victim, and we have an opportunity to present both sides or three sides or whatever the sides are, and then we get to make a determination. The Chicago Blackhawks failed utterly and completely in not following through on the sexual assault allegation. And it's simply wrong. And hopefully, and I say this hopefully, that now when we hear about any allegation of sexual assault, that the investigation takes place immediately. There's nothing that should distract from that.
Yeah.
Not a Stanley Cup final, not anything that goes with it. But, we understand too, and the late Rocky Wirtz was part of that. John McDonough, the CEO, was a big part of that. I always start at the top, Tony. I say it always starts at the top. That's where I go to first. And I don't and I know there's trickle down effect. I know there's people at different layers that you can sit down and say should have, could have done better. And we know that. But at the same time, I think that I always look right to the top, and the top failed.
We'll talk Montreal Canadiens hockey in about a minute, but before we do, just to let you know once again that yes, I am in Spain. So this podcast has been pre-recorded earlier in the day. Going to have to, because or else 10 p.m. Eastern is actually 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'm not about to do it at 4 a.m. in the morning. All right, as much as I love everyone. So this was pre-recorded a little bit earlier. Now, talking Montreal Canadiens hockey, it's funny because I'm actually going to be talking Philadelphia Flyers hockey, but it ties in, I think, with the Montreal Canadiens, because it was a couple of seasons ago that the Montreal Canadiens had the number 5 pick overall in the draft. It was last month that the Canadiens with the number 5 pick picked Russian Ivan Demidov with their number 5 pick. And the year before that, they also had the number 5 pick, and there was another Russian player available by the name of Matvei Michkov, who was a fan favorite for Montreal Canadiens fans for the most part. He's the one that they wanted him to draft. Everyone talked about an incredible talent, one of the top three talents, according to many independent scouts and observers in probably the last decade or so. But the knock was attitude problem, this, that, a little bit of a problem player. What happened with his dad? What was behind it? Is he involved in anything? And the big thing was, well, he's going to stay in the KHL for 3 more years because they have him in their contract for 3 more years. So you don't want to touch this guy because it's going to take, 3 years, at least 3 years to get him over. And who knows what will happen in year 4. 1 year later, Matvei Michkov arrives at the airport in Philly, greeted by Keith Jones and Daniel Briere. And Daniel Briere is so happy to see him that he's actually carrying Michkov sticks. All right. The picture has made its way through social media and the web, and it's gone viral by now. But your thoughts on Michkov coming over 1 year after he was drafted?
I think that, we've talked about this in previous episodes, and I'll reiterate it again, Tony, is that the Russian players always come over. I mean, I've said this, and the beautiful thing about it is, Tony, I'll be able to say this next year and the year after and the year after that and the year after that, because NHL teams just don't learn. They don't learn. And I know I'm putting everybody in the same basket, so I'm just talking about generally. But, if you don't want to draft a Russian, just say, we don't want to draft a Russian. Don't make all these excuses. Well, we're not sure if he's going to come over. They all come over. Every single one of them comes over. They always have. And they've starred in the National Hockey League. They've won Hart trophies and Stanley Cups and Conn Smythe trophies. They've always come over. So this idea, if you're going to draft I understand and say, listen, we want a player right now. We want a player right now. So knowing that the contract situation is only 3 years away, well, maybe we want a player. Well, I could make an argument against that, and I did. I said, well, imagine getting Matvei Michkov on an entry-level contract at 21 years of age. You talk about value for 3 years on an entry-level contract? That would be phenomenal for an NHL team. Anyway, regardless, I think it's a good reminder that business is open with the KHL and Russian hockey, and that despite the fact that Matvei Michkov had a 3-year contract, there was a way to work through it and to get his services in the NHL. And keep in mind, the Philadelphia Flyers back in January went through a real significant PR smear. I shouldn't say smear. That's not the right way to put it. They went through a significant PR challenge when Cutter Gauthier said he wouldn't play there. And they have to handle that, and they traded him, and there was some things said that weren't appropriate by the Philadelphia Flyers president. But now the news of Matvei Michkov coming over, it's exciting. And, Danny Briere, carrying Michkov's sticks is phenomenal. It's a belief in the player, and they get him. And I think it dovetails nicely to Demidov because same organization as Michkov, Scott, and people can talk about 2023, and I get it. You can only deal with that there. I think Demidov's a better player, a better prospect than Michkov. And I think Michkov's a terrific prospect. Don't get me wrong. But I think Demidov is better. Sometimes, just waiting to see what unfolds in the years after. It's never about one player, unless that player's name is McDavid or Lemieux. It's one of those players.
Yeah.
It's never about one player. So the Montreal Canadiens make a decision. They want Reinbacher. They got lots of good talent, and now they get Demidov. Well, it's pretty phenomenal now. They might have their cake and eat it too. And I think it's a good opportunity for people to look forward and know Demidov is coming. And I don't know how soon it will be, but he's coming, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
just draft the player you want. Montreal got a terrific one.
I want to get to
Philadelphia got a good player too.
Yeah, I want to get to Demidov in just a second.
Okay.
Back to Michkov for 1 second here. Is that once again a couple of years ago when he was drafted? I mean, some people say, yeah, well, he's got a 3-year contract in Russia. You're not going to be able to get him over for 3 years. But let's be honest. Most players who are drafted 5th overall in the National Hockey League, they might join your organization 2-3 years later because, how many enter the National Hockey League right away at 18 years of age? I mean, the first pick overall, maybe the second, the 5th doesn't usually start. And then they'll probably do one more year wherever they are. Then they'll probably do 1 year of American Hockey League, and then they'll start. So the difference isn't 3-4 years away. It's probably 1 year, really, when all is said and done.
Well said, Tony. Let's go back to one of the greatest 5th overall picks in Montreal Canadiens history. And I'm not talking about Ray Martinick.
Carey Price.
It was a goal. Carey Price, right? But do you remember Ray Martinick? Ray Martinick was the 5th overall pick by the Montreal Canadiens. He was a goalie anyway.
What year was that? No, because to answer your question, I do not remember. What year
you can go back and look it up. Robin Sadler was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. He chose to be a firefighter. Anyway, let's just go back to Carey Price. I'm just kidding around here, but Carey Price was the 5th overall pick, and he was a stud goaltender at that point in time. Carey Price was 21 before he stepped and played into the was settled into the NHL. And let's not forget, let's look at 2010. And there's all kinds of talk in 2010. Is it Halak or is it Price? Is it Halak or is it Price? Carey at that point in time was 23 years old.
Yeah.
Just think about, there was still in 2010 questions about who is Montreal Canadiens goaltender going forward.
Yeah.
And that's after Carey had won World Junior Gold and won a championship at the American Hockey League level.
Yeah.
His bona fides were on display for everybody. 23 years old, there was still questions if Carey Price was the guy for the Montreal. So it's exactly to your point, Tony. Exactly to your point.
You're right. When Price was drafted in 2005, 5th pick overall, the 05-06 season, he played in WHL with the Tri-City Americans. The 06-07 season, he played in WHL with the Tri-City Americans. At the end of the season, went over to the Hamilton Bulldogs, played a couple of games, and then started the next season with the Montreal Canadiens, went down to play 10 games with the Hamilton Bulldogs that season, but then he came back to the Montreal Canadiens and never looked back.
Right. But in 2010, after that series against the Washington Capitals, just think about that. There was all kinds of discussion. Oh, who's the goalie of the future? Yeah. Who's the goalie of the present for the Montreal Canadiens?
Yeah, Yaroslav Halak not only beat the Washington Capitals in round 1, 7 games, a Capitals team, by the way, that outscored the Canadiens by over 100 goals, at a couple of 50-goal scorers and 40-goal scorers and 30-goal scorers. I believe they had the best power play in the National Hockey League that season. They were the best team in the National Hockey League in the regular season. I think Halak, they were down 3-1 in the series. I think Halak Were they down 3-1? I think they were down 3-1. I think but Halak made like something like 54 saves in game number 6 or something like that. And I don't know if they were down 3-1 anyway, but he made like 54. They were down 3-2 for sure. He made 54 saves, I think, in game 6. And then Dominic Moore scored the winning goal in game number 7. I think they were outshot 42-21 or 42-18 or whatever in game 7. So he beat the Capitals in 7 games. He beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in 7 games, game 7 being in Pittsburgh. And then the Canadiens bowed out to the Philadelphia Flyers in 5 games because they ran out of gas. They just ran out of gas. Anyway, now on to Demidov. Once again, this show's being recorded, but last we heard here, he has not been invited to SCA development camp or SCA camp. And so now more and more people are talking about, okay, if SCA don't want him at camp and he has to go down to play in the MHL again for a second year in a row, can't be a good thing, might, stunt his development. Could you see him playing with the Montreal Canadiens right away come October?
No, I don't. We were just talking about Michkov, Tony, and Matvei ran into the same problem. And so what did SCA do? They sent him to Sochi. He got to play on a team where he could have more ice time, where he could have more ability to play in the roles that he was suited for. Because, hey, listen, SCA's a top team. You're not going to get an opportunity with SCA that you might get someplace else. And so Matvei Michkov went to Sochi and he played in the KHL. He played against men. He played against all kinds of different challenges as a youngster and was able to master them. And when I say master them, progress through them. And I think that's an option for Demidov. And it's an option that I think can work very well. There's always going to be in my collective history different ideas about what's the best development and where a player develops or where he doesn't develop and what the hindrances could be. NHL teams have brought players into their fold and failed in the development area too. It's not like the NHL teams have all the answers either. So I'm going to use Michkov as a recent example. And certainly when you think about a year after he was drafted and understanding that, okay, now SCA looks at it and the Philadelphia Flyers are engaged in discussions and they go, okay, you're ready to go. I think that just everybody being patient for at least a year, see where Ivan ends up over the course of this year, and then go from there. I don't think there's any problem with Ivan Demidov being able to play MHL, play in the KHL, maybe on a lesser team as they loan him out, and go from there. And let's see at this time next July 2025 where he's at. We might have a picture of Kent Hughes carrying Ivan's sticks coming into the Montreal airport.
But let's just say playing for the Montreal Canadiens as of October. Let's just say for whatever reason, boom, that happens.
Not ready. He's not ready.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, because he's already admitted that he believes he needs to get more explosive. He believes he needs to get bigger. He believes he needs to put on more muscle. And my question to you was going to be, you know what, if he enters the National Hockey League not ready, can he be burned by it? And I think you just answered.
Yeah, I totally, like I said, the NHL has failed more players than players have failed on their own. And I say that with full conviction.
All right. Sounds good. We have plenty to talk about, believe it or not, even though it's middle of July. So I look forward to the next time I'm going to talk with you, because there's so much more topics that we can get to. You know what? I haven't even asked you about Pascal Vincent's hiring yet with the Laval Rocket.
Talk about it. We should talk about it. It'll take us 5 minutes to talk about Pascal.
Let's talk about it. Let's go.
Yeah. Pascal was a really good coach in the American Hockey League. When he was with the Manitoba Moose, he did a really good job there. He did a really good job in junior hockey too. And then, he became an assistant, and then he ended up as the head coach. And I look at Pascal and I see a lot of similarities. A former Columbus coach in Jared Bednar. Jared Bednar got thrust into a situation in Colorado, last minute, hired a miserable season, just a miserable season. And the good thing for Jared is Joe Sakic said it's not fair, because there was a lot of talk. Go back and read it. Oh, they got to fire Jared Bednar. Why do they got to fire Jared Bednar? He won at the East Coast League. He won at the American Hockey League level, and he inherited a situation that was awful. And Joe said, wait, it's not fair. We didn't set him up with a team that we could really evaluate how good Jared is, and his history of success stands out. I think that Pascal had to step into a situation last year that was an absolute mess. It was a full-blown mess from the minute they hired Mike Babcock. And it never stopped being a full-blown mess. And that's not fair to Pascal Vincent. And now, big changeover, everything. I mean, you get your first NHL opportunity, and this is what happens to you. And it becomes something that's really, really and any coach is going to feel anguished by what transpired. Oh my God, geez, and a coach is going, I'll try my best. And he did try his best. I think it's a terrific hire for Montreal and for Laval. I think that Pascal understands the development process. He understands that young players are going to have to be given some different opportunities and what I call exploratory opportunities. Okay, you're going to take a key face-off late in the game in a tie game. Now, not because I think you can win the face-off, because you need to know what it takes to go win that face-off.
Yeah.
I think that and that's just one example. And I think Pascal, having been in junior, having been in the American League, having been an assistant in the NHL and a head coach, I think it'll serve him really well. And I think for Pascal, what he was able to gain last year in Columbus was learning. Bruce Boudreau said this lots. He said, I learned what not to do. And I'm not suggesting that Pascal did anything wrong. What I'm suggesting is he'll benefit from that experience. He'll bring it to Laval. And I think Pascal is a good enough coach where he'll get another opportunity in the NHL. I truly, deeply believe that. He's a really good person. He's a really good, solid coach. And I think that for the Montreal Canadiens to get him in their fold, I think it's an excellent hire.
Yeah, I look at it from his perspective. A, he's coming back home. B, it's a real nice building to play in. C, I think Canadiens have a lot of really good prospects on their horizon here that he can have a chance to work with. D, it's a great opportunity for him to redeem himself. And I think the Canadiens really, in Pascal's misfortune of being fired from the Columbus Blue Jackets, really got lucky here to think of a guy with Pascal's experience, un gars de chez nous, to be able to come back home. He basically fell in their lap, Craig. I mean, they had no other choice but to hire. Like, you can't say no to Pascal Vincent. He fell in their lap.
Well, so the misfortune that Pascal found himself in Columbus, not his doing. There wasn't any misfortune on Pascal's point of view. Ended up being the Montreal Canadiens' fortune, and I think it'll be Pascal's fortune to be with Kent Hughes and with the group in Montreal and really grow from that. And you're right. It's one of those things. You're probably going to go have a siesta, and you're going to really enjoy it. Yeah. The Montreal Canadiens are going to really enjoy Pascal Vincent working with their young players.
Yeah, I'm not going to have a siesta right now. I'm going back to watch a second practice of the day. But listen, I want to end it with this. We started the Sick podcast talking about the Edmonton Oilers hiring Stan Bowman as their general manager and executive VP of hockey operations. If somebody would give you a call tomorrow and say, hey, Craig, I'm thinking of bringing back Mike Babcock and hiring him as our coach, what do you think? What would you say?
I say, don't do it.
That's it, eh?
Mike's never learned. And I'd like to know who would advocate on Mike Babcock's behalf.
If he hasn't learned until now, he's probably not going to learn. You're probably right about that. Craig Button, thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon, my man.
Thanks.
All right, there you have it. Craig Button of TSN, their hockey analyst and director of scouting. Special thanks to Energy Transportation Group. Special thanks to Tibi. Special thanks to Playground, and special thanks to Betway for all their support. Special thanks to all of you for watching and listening to the Sick Podcast. Once again, tell all your friends about it. They can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. If you like it, share with your friends. Comment Sick, S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K. And leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love for Shane Gaumont and Yellow Cavallaro and Sammy Cavallaro of Master Control. I'm Marinaro. Thanks for watching the Sick Podcast. I'll be back tomorrow. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.